name's Hydo and welcome to the Pantheon. Today we're going to be having a look at a brand new mono white commander. We're going to be having a look what the best 5 cards for this card are. Without further ado, let's have a go. Mavinda, Student's Advocate, is a 3 mana legendary bird advisor. 3 mana, you know, we can get it out early, and if he dies, we can bring him back. Then he has flying and pay 0. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 more to cast this way. If that spell will be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Activate only once each turn. You still pay the spell's costs. Timing rules for the spell still apply. So we're going to be concentrating on mainly things that buff our creatures and target our own stuff. Because I don't want to go paying 8 mana extra for, well, anything really. And then finally to 2/3 with flying, which really helps with our sort of chip damage, buff our creatures sort of tactic. So without further ado, let's dive into it and have a look at number 5. And in at number 5 we have Defiant Strike, a 1 mana instant. Tag creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Draw a card. The main theme of this sort of section is we want to be drawing cards. We can really generate a lot of advantage through this commander and just using its ability. And then each turn, yes, we can only use its flashback sort of casting ability once, but on everyone else's turn, we can solely churn through our deck, which is really, really good. To go along with this, we've got Guided Strike, which is a 2 mana instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Draw a card. Then we have Bandage, 1 mana. Prevent 1 damage to any creature or player. This does target. Draw a card. Shelter, 2 mana instant. Target creature you control gains protection from a colour of your choice until end of turn. Draw a card. All of these help get some damage in and really get us to draw through our deck. On a similar sort of axis, we've got Bathe in Light, which is a 2 mana instant with Radiance. So you choose a colour, then target creature and each other creature that shares a colour with it gains protection from the chosen colour until end of turn. So all of our creatures are going to be white in the main. Maybe some artifacts thrown in there. But everything will gain protection from something. If someone wants to, you know, wipe the board using a damage-based spell, this will prevent that from happening. Kaya's Onslaught is a fantastic little instant that's just come out. 3 mana for an instant, tag creature gets +1/+1 and gains double strike until end of turn. And you can foretell it, which means that during a turn you can pay 2, exile the card from your hand face down. Then cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost, which is 1. Which is really, really good. We can push through a lot of damage with this. Finally, we've got Niveus Wisps, which is a 1 mana instant. Target creature becomes white until end of turn. Tap that creature. Draw a card. Yes, we don't want to be tapping our own creatures, but if we're flashing it back, this is essentially 1 mana, draw a card. And yes, we tap our commander or one of our other creatures, but that's not the end of the world. With number 4, we've got Monastery Mentor. Now, we're going to be casting a lot of instants and sorceries throughout our turns, and getting value off that is very, very important. So Monastery Mentor is one of the best ways we can do that. It's a human monk with prowess, which means whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess onto the battlefield. And he's a 2/2. So every single turn, we're going to be casting little instants of sorceries. We're going to be generating this large board of 1/1s that just keep growing with prowess if we cast a lot of spells on one turn. To go along with this, we've got a couple of other cards that really care about targeting. We've got Vanguard of Brimaz, 2 mana for Vigilance 2/2 with Heroic. And whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you get a 1/1 white soldier token with Vigilance. It's also a cat. Meow. Fabled Hero is a 3 mana 2/2 with double strike and also has Heroic. So when it's targeted by a spell, get +1/+1, put a 1/1 counter on it. Really grows the team, double strike, incredibly powerful. We can push through a lot of damage. Finally, Dawnbringer Charioteers, 4 mana for a 2/4 with flying and lifelink. Heroic, exactly the same, put a 1/1 counter on it. Really cool abilities, and if we don't want to target our commander, these are some good options. Nice bit of redundancy. Finally, this last section is Very similar, but they're not exactly the same. So Ojutai Exemplars, which is a 4 mana 4/4, is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Tap target creature, so we can get through some damage. Ojutai's Exemplar gains first strike and lifelink until end of turn, makes him good on attacks, and exile him from the battlefield and then return him to the battlefield tapped under your control. So if someone points a removal spell at him, we can just flicker him, keep him alive. Then there's Precursor Golem, a card that I absolutely love. 5 mana for a 3/3 Golem. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 3/3 colorless Golem creature artifact tokens onto the battlefield. And whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single Golem, that player copies that spell for each other Golem that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those Golems. So if we're casting one of our 1 mana spells that draws a card, we target Precursor Golem and whatever other Golems you might be playing, maybe Solemn Simulacrum, and then you're going to be drawing 3 cards instead of the 1, which is pretty cool, I'd say. Scroll of Masters is a 2 mana artifact that reads, whenever a caster non-creature spell, put a lore counter on Scroll of Masters. Of the Masters. And then it has 3 mana and tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each lore counter on Scroll of Masters. So this is just going to keep building and building and building, and then we can get in for a massive chunk of damage. Brings us on to number 3. Eerie Interlude. We're going to have a big, well, hopefully, a big board of creatures. But we want to protect them, and this card is perfect for it. 3 mana for an instant. Exile any number of target creatures you control. The important thing is this targets, so we can recast it from our graveyard using our commander. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. If our opponent goes to board wipe, we cast this, flicker everything out, then everything comes back in. Really cool, and the fact you can do it from your graveyard is just fantastic. Semester's End is a very similar card that's just been released from Strixhaven. 4 mana instant, exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of the next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter if it's a creature, or a loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker. Exactly the same effect, costs 1 mana more, but it's great. We can cast it from our graveyard. Ephemerate is an absolute all-star. 1 mana instant, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Can re-trigger any enter the battlefield effects that we might be playing. Precursor Golem's a pretty cool one. And it also has rebound, which means when you cast it, put it into exile, and then you recast it again. Very nice. Scapegoat is a rather interesting card. 1 white instant. As an additional cast, sacrifice a creature. Return any number of target creatures you control to their owner's hand. So this is a last-ditch attempt. If someone has a board wipe, and with no other answers, this is a simple 1 mana answer. Save all of your creatures. Which brings us on to number 2. So, Sphere of Resistance, which is a 2 mana artifact that all spells cost an additional 1 mana to play, is a pretty miserable card, but we're playing mono white, and mono white's not the best. So, if we can slow down our opponents in any way possible, that's really quite good. Yes, the tax on all of our spells is going to be quite crippling, but hopefully we can get through enough damage with our little dudes to be able to make it worthwhile. To go along with it, we've got a couple of other sort of more one-sided things. We've got Godfarer's Statue, 6 mana legendary artifact. Spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast. And at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life. So we are not going to be taxed by this, which is really good. Kismat is a very similar card. So it's a 4 mana enchantment. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents can play come into play tapped. Doesn't affect us, and it really can cripple your opponents. The fact that the lands come into play tapped is just wonderful. Then Thorn of Amethyst is a 2 mana artifact. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to play. We are playing a lot of non-creature spells, so this could be a risky include, but it can be very crippling to your opponents. Radina, God of Worthy, is a 3 mana 2/3 with Flying and Vigilance, and Snowlands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. I think we're going to see a lot of Snowlands being played in Commander, especially because they're so sort of cool, and you can have some unique effects using them. So this can be really crippling, even against monocolored decks. Non-creature spells your opponents cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater, cost 2 more to cast. That's excellent. Makes all board wipes essentially cost 2 more. Very good. The other side of this is Valkmira, Protector's Shield, a 4-mana legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. And whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability your opponent's controls, counter that unless its controller pays 1. Actually, I don't think it's a... Oh, no, it is spell or ability. Very good. Protects everything on your board, and it's a good little tax effect. Finally, we've got Dranith Magistrates, which is a 2-mana 1/3 that reads, your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. So, I mean, you're playing Commander, but why would your opponents want to play their commanders? Why? Or why would they want to cast things from exile? Or maybe the graveyard? I mean, it allows us to, so this card's just absolutely fantastic in this deck. Brings us on to number 1. And these are the more interesting sort of spells that you might not see in other decks. Debt of Loyalty is a 3-mana instant. Regenerate target creature. Gain control of that creature. This is so cool. And the main use for it is if a board wipe's incoming and your opponent has a massive creature, you just target it with this. It regenerates it, and then you gain control of it. But the fun doesn't stop there with our commander, because once it's in the graveyard, we can use it on our own commander to regenerate our commander and save it from a board wipe. It's such a cool card, and it's a card that you don't see hardly anywhere really, but in this deck, it's just so powerful. Valorous Stance is a split card, well, a modal card. 2-mana instant, choose 1. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Great, we can save our commander. Or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. So the main way we're going to be using this is when it's in our hand, we're going to destroy a creature, you know, probably one of our opponent's big threats. And then we can protect our commander from the graveyard. Very cool. Dawn Charm is a 2-mana instant with choose 1. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Or regenerate target creature. Or counter target spell that targets you. So again, either the top or the bottom options, the prevent all combat damage or the counter target spell, that's what we're going to be using when it's in our hand. And then from the graveyard, we can regenerate our commander or another big threat that we've got on the go. Light of Hope is a 1-mana instance with choose 1. You gain 4 life, destroy target enchantment, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. 3 excellent options, you know, always going to be applicable in the game. The gain 4 life could save your life if someone's trying to Boros Charm you to death or something like that. But very cool card. Veilstone Amulet is a awesome artifact. 3 mana, whenever you play a spell, creatures you control can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So every time you cast one of your little instants or sorceries, it gives all of your field hexproof. Incredibly powerful. Any sort of targeted removal, you can wait until your opponent's pointed at it, then you cast one of your little instants, save your creature. Very cool. Fell the Mighty is a 5-mana sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. So our commander, only 2 power. This is going to target our commander, destroy everything larger. And because it targets, we can cast it from our graveyard as well, using our commander's ability. Very cool. Finally, we've got Sphinxbone Wand. 7-mana artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinxbone Wand. If you do, Sphinxbone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. This can be used to manipulate the board, you know, kill a couple of creatures, and then finally, when we're getting up to like the 10 counter range, just start pointing at our opponents and kill them. And that is my top 5 cards for this new commander. It's really cool to see mono white getting different sort of avenues of card advantage and card drawing. And I really like this card. If you've got any suggestions for cards that could go with it, please do share them. I'd love to hear them. Thank you very much. Please subscribe and bye.